Hey everyone, we're about to get started here on episode 3. Just gonna wait for Aaron to hop on. Hello, hello. How was everybody's weekend? Let's get Aaron on here. Uh-oh, I think I might have hit the wrong button. Aaron, oh, there we go. Hey.
Hey, how are you?
Pretty good. Let me turn my volume down real quick. There we go. I finally got a ring light. Been needing to get one for a while. So, how was your weekend?
It was pretty good. Busy.
Yeah. Same here.
We had a storm that took down a huge tree on the property, so I'm
Oh no.
trying to take care of that. It did a bunch of damage.
Not to your house, I hope.
Not to the house, to my garden.
Oh no. Oh.
Yeah.
That stinks. Yeah, we had some crazy weather roll through Oklahoma too last night, but thankfully where we live, it just like spreads around us. It either goes north and south, so we're kind of in a sweet spot. But yeah, we're used to crazy weather. Well, I hope you get it cleaned up and it's, easy to fix.
Yeah, it won't be, but
Oh.
We'll get through.
You're resilient, I have no doubt. All right, well, let's just dive right into it. Welcome everyone to The Raw Truth. This is where Aaron and I talk about cats and dogs and everything in between. Today's episode, we're going to talk about canine and feline anatomy. I know everyone is so eager, especially you and me, to just jump right into the whole balanced and complete, meal thing, but that's going to be next week. And I kind of wanted to ease in, to our podcast here and not just hit the ground running with like a super controversial topic. But I also, we wanted to like rewire pet parents and their brains, to stop looking at their pet as this cute, cuddly animal, which they are, and that's why we like them and we, invite them into our families. But we want to show people that they're very instinctual and they're predators on the inside. They're still just like
all of this stuff is really important to understand. All of those principles, what they should eat and why they should eat it and why, it makes a difference and how you're feeding them and how you go about doing it. All of this anatomy and the evolution and everything, it's kind of vital to understand all of that. And I think we're trying to do it in a fun way, not like a teach you kind of something way.
Right. Yeah. So I guess there's a lot to cover today. I just kind of wanted to go like just from snout all the way down to the body or to the tail, and just kind of telling people why each of those parts are so important to know about, because it says a lot about your pet. I think you're going to play a big part in this because I could not find hardly any information on felines. It's like they're left out of everything.
Well, they get left out of everything, and we're unsure about. There's a lot of conflicting information depending on where you look. With cats, we can be off in the information by huge amounts. So a lot of what we know about cats is kind of in that gray area of we don't 100% know, because I don't know why, but we don't seem to look into a lot of this stuff as deeply with cats as we do with dogs. So there's just not as much information out there.
Do you think maybe it's because people have more dogs as pets?
I don't know. I think cats are popular, just as popular as dogs. I mean, I think there's actually more cats as pets. Yeah.
Yeah. So
I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. I don't know why it is. It's a little frustrating.
Yeah.
But I've got some notes about all these specific to cats, so hopefully we can contribute something about cats that
Yeah.
maybe they didn't know.
Awesome. All right, cool. Yeah, because when I was looking, like, it was the grossest stuff popping up, like people extracting, parasites from their noses and just like cat dissections and stuff. I know, it was really weird. So I couldn't find the information, that I was looking for, but I have a feeling they're pretty similar in a lot
Very,
of
very.
ways. So let's talk about the snout, the nose. So I know for dogs, like this is their main sensory. Like for humans, it's vision. We can see everything. For a dog, it's smelling, and they can also taste at the same time. So,
and that goes for cats too. Cats also have that Jacobson's organ that's in the roof of the mouth, or in the back of the snout roof of the mouth. They also, that's another similar thing between the two of them, is that they both function based off of smell above all other senses. Cats have nearly as many receptors as dogs do, if not more, according to some sources, with some sources saying that maybe cats have even a little bit more of a refined sense of it. There's some people that are pushing to advocate for cats being used more in that search and rescue for scent, because they have a protein. They have a protein called a V1R protein, and humans have it. We only have 2 variants in our system of this. Dogs have 9 variants of this protein, but cats have over 30 that we know of currently.
Holy smokes.
And what this does is it allows them to differentiate different scents and categorize them, like in their brain, to then go, like, how if we give a dog a scent and we say, like, go find something, when we use a dog for search, a cat can actually do that potentially 3 times better than a dog can, but we don't use it.
Right.
We just don't use it.
Right. And
so that's something I don't think most people even know that's a thing, because it's not something that is ever really talked about. I mean, have you ever heard of a cat being used in that manner? Me neither. But it's becoming a bigger thing the more we learn about the way that cats process scents like that, because, cats are smaller. They're often more agile than dogs and can get into places that dogs can't get to. So maybe we should be looking at cats to, do that kind of work too.
Yeah, absolutely. That would be amazing. And I think maybe why they haven't used them is because they're not yet as trainable as the dog. Obviously the dogs were domesticated way long before cats. And
well,
so
it's not even that they're not trainable, but dogs kind of want to please us, and cats are kind of like, you work for me.
Yeah. Totally. My cat tells me exactly when to feed him. Like, he never misses a beat.
There's a personality difference there.
Oh, big time. Yeah. So that's really cool. I didn't know anything about that. I had figured that dogs, just because of their scent work, were leaps and bounds above cats. So that's really great. So just kind of wanted to talk about the anatomy too of the nose. So with the dog, they're able to breathe in and smell in, but also exhale at the same time through the slits. And so that allows them to, like, constantly be able to sniff and breathe. Do cats do that too?
Yep.
Do you know?
Yep.
Okay.
Same concept, where they take in some of the oxygen is immediately going to go into the lungs for function, for breathing. And then same as dogs, some of it also goes into a specific cavity where they can hold on to that scent through multiple respiratory procedures over and over again. They can hold a scent just like a dog can in that separate little area that they have. That it's totally something that we don't have it. It's mostly in animals that hunt that have that ability to do that.
Yeah. Awesome. And so there's also something called the olfactory epithelium. So it's like this little flap of tissue in their nasal passage that will be able to close off one or the other. So like they can taste and then they can also smell,
Yep.
right? Is that the function
Yep.
of
Yep.
it?
Yep.
Okay.
It's that taste smell. Dogs and cats both eat more through their sense of smell than their sense of taste.
Yeah.
Like by a lot. I mean, a dog, what is it? A dog has like 17,000 taste buds. A cat has less than 500.
Right.
It's very few. Like they aren't eating, when people say their dog or their cats are being picky eaters, they aren't animals that really eat a whole lot based on taste. I mean, they taste things. They have the ability to taste different, sour and bitter and all different flavor profiles. Although cats can't taste sweet. They don't even they have no ability to taste sweet whatsoever, which is an indicator of the fact that they shouldn't be eating any sort of carbohydrate, because they can't even taste sweet, and sweet comes from, carbohydrate.
Carbs.
Primarily. Yeah. So they don't even have the ability to taste it. But yeah, it's a huge difference. Where we have like 9,000 taste buds, with a cat, you're looking at less than 500. So they're not eating. They're not eating based on what something tastes like to them. They're eating based on what something smells like to them. And then they have the ability to actually do what is called like a taste smell. I forget what the exact term is, but basically it means when they smell something, they can sort of taste it before it's actually in their mouths, through the aroma of a specific scent. So strong scents, like when they're hunting prey. If your cat hears a mouse on the other side of the wall and they can smell that mouse, they get like this signal through their brain that kind of gives them almost like what that mouse tastes like. It's weird, it's crazy, but it's like, it's really fascinating if you dive into it, of like how they use that smell to actually influence what they should eat. And they know, because they can smell such strong scents, if something is bad, like if that mouse had gotten into like rat poison or whatever, and it had that in their system, the cat could smell that ahead of time and not know that that's poison, it's going to kill me, but like know that there's something wrong with that mouse and they shouldn't eat it just based off of that smell. Yeah. Which is kind of crazy that they can smell to that extent,
Right. And I mean, and so do dogs, because they do a lot of they're doing a lot of research now where your pets could even sniff out cancer. And so,
well, you've got the dogs that alert to seizures before they happen, because they can smell that somebody's, they can smell the chemistry changing in the body before we even know it's happening.
Yeah. I think that's incredible, man. I wish humans had that kind of instinctual,
we come in handy.
I know. I don't know how we're on like the top of the totem pole when it comes to just that kind of comparison. I mean, obviously we have thumbs and brains, but I think when you like really dig into the animals about just their physiology and anatomy, they're incredible little beings. Okay, so I wrote down here that, let's see. So dogs have about 1/10 of the size of brain as humans do, but that olfactory part of the smelling is like 40 times as big in them as it is in humans. So that right there just shows you like the smell taste thing is their dominant trait. Let's see, we already covered the Jacobson's organ.
So cats actually have a weird thing also that I don't know if dogs have this, but I know that cats have a specific taste bud for water. And water, in that like it kind of stops them from consuming too much sodium, like naturally occurring sodium when they eat, because they are animals that aren't meant to drink a lot. So they have this little signal that goes off in their brain if they get too much sodium, that basically tells them to stop eating it, because you get too much sodium and then the electrolytes start getting imbalanced, they get dehydrated, and they're not an animal that's meant to go drink a bunch of water. So they have this little built-in signal that kind of tells them if they take in too much sodium to stop. They just won't consume excess sodium I don't know if dogs have that. I honestly, I need to look into that, but I know that dogs have that
Or
ability
cats have it?
to some extent, I think,
Okay.
because you look at, like, there are some studies showing, like, that they won't consume, you know, some of the areas of the animal that contain a lot of sodium and a lot of magnesium. So maybe they have it. I don't know. I know that cats have it strong, which
Yeah.
is kind of a built-in, keeps them from dehydrating themselves, because they are meant to be taking in all their moisture from their food and not from drinking.
That's awesome. I had never heard about that, so I'm definitely gonna look into that further. I think that's new to me. Um, See, and this is why you're like my go-to cat lady. Learned so much from you.
Well, cats they also will eat, like, texturally based more
Yeah.
than smell as well. So texture is a big thing for cats. So cats will consume food, like, people always want to know why cats chew grass, right? You can go to the pet store and they sell, like, cat grass, right? Like, why does a carnivore eat grass?
Yeah.
They're drawn to the texture of it, because they don't take anything nutritionally from it, but they're drawn to that for the fiber that they get to feed the gut, and that's their, other than the non-digestible parts of an animal that they take in, they're drawn to that texture. Like, they have a weird connection between what they want to eat. So that's why a lot of times if you change the texture of a food when you're trying to offer it to a cat, it makes it automatically more appealing to the cat.
And they're imprint animals, as
Yes.
compared to dogs. So it's like whatever they first start eating is what they're gonna like want. And that's why it took me months to transition my cat. I mean, literally almost a year, because I had, started him on kibble and he just did not want anything else but kibble. And
And
so
it's
just,
common. I
it
mean,
was
and that's why people
persistence.
give up. That's why people give up on them, because it's a battle of wills for a long time to get a cat.
Yeah.
They heavily imprint early in life. That's why it's like, if I ever get another kitten, I mean, straight away.
Yes, absolutely. All right. So I don't think that there's anything else with the nose. Do you? Well, okay. What about, do you think that the coldness or the wetness says anything about their health, as far as like a dry nose is when they're sick, and a
I mean, there's
wet runny
definitely
nose?
things that manifest as, like, conditions on the nose, but to an extent, because I mean, their noses are very individual, and it also depends on the climate. Is it drier in the air where you are? I mean, there's a lot of, yes and no.
Yeah. I totally agree. I mean, sometimes my dog wakes up from a nap and his nose is dry as a bone, and then within 2 minutes it's wet and
It's
cold
fine.
and healthy.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, obviously, I think if you have like a sore, or
Just
if you
like
have some kind of
chronic
discharge,
wetness, or like overly, then I'd look into it. But
yeah,
I think people freak out about a little bit of something once in a while. Like,
yeah,
it's not. I mean, they both get that, like, it's like a little bit of white, like it's an electrolyte coming through, and then it's like the sodium coming through that you can see. But it's not something that you need to freak out about. Like, it's a normal bodily process
function.
that they go through.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So, and then next is the eyes. So for dogs, everybody thinks that dogs are colorblind. They only see black and white, but they truly see blues, whites, and yellows. And I think that this is interesting because I didn't really know that for the longest time. I always thought the myth that they saw black and white. But I saw that if you look at like agility, like dog agility videos or whatever, if you're doing that with your dog, most of the ramps and obstacles are blue and yellow. And so I just thought that was the neatest thing.
Yeah, I never thought about that.
Yeah, so that they can see what they're getting on. And it's also kind of ironic because most dog toys are red. Like you see the red Kongs, you see the red Frisbees, and that's a color that they can't see, and they you know, they get it confused with the shade of green. So if you have something red in the grass, they're going to have a really, not necessarily a really difficult time trying to find it, but it's going to be more difficult than if it were yellow or red. Do you know, or do cats see in full color, or are they colorblind to certain
As far
shades?
as I know, they don't see all that differently from dogs. I honestly don't know a lot about the eyes. I just be honest, I don't really know a lot
Yeah.
about the eyes of cats. I mean, I know they have a greater ability than dogs to see in low light.
Yes.
I mean, they can see exceptionally well in the dark.
Mm-hmm.
But aside from that, I don't really know this exact range of their color and vision. I've never really looked into it.
I know. Well, that again, like I keep trying to find this information. I just can't find it out there. So I need to look somewhere else for it, or look a little bit deeper, because this was just kind of like surface level. I think that that's something we should kind of figure out, because I think it would be beneficial. So dogs, they, you know, have round pupils. They're really good at seeing at night as well. Obviously not as good as cats, and that's because of the pupil shape. So the domestic house cat has the vertical slit pupils, but they can also go to round. And so this kind of shows me that they can see, like they can judge something from far, like they can focus in on it, but then they can also, like, it's almost like a camera, like it just focuses in on that one thing and the rest kind of goes blurry. So
yeah, they get that tunnel vision on things.
Yeah, it's like an apex predator type vision, whereas dogs, they can see really far, but it's not like that precision type of vision. And obviously dogs have night vision that's like 4 times better than a human. And then, you know, the cats, they're really good at seeing in low light and nocturnal. As far as vision, that's about all I got. So
yeah, that's about as much as I wrote down about vision. I kind of skipped over that.
It's fine. There are a couple of animals that have like other unique pupils besides just that. You have the vertical slit, and then you have like goats that have the horizontal. Frogs almost have like a heart shaped, and
yeah,
I just think it's really interesting.
Yeah, a lot of reptiles have the same, that the slit. My husband and I used to be big into snakes and reptiles when we were in our 20s, so that was cool. So like the eyes are cool. They're just like fascinating.
They are. I think the cuttlefish, like they can have the circle pupil, and then it can even like turn into like a W shape. In certain situations. Yeah, I don't know why, because I didn't research cuttlefish very much, but I just thought that was kind of cool. All right. So we kind of touched on the tongue with the taste buds. So like you said, humans have about 9,000, dogs have about 1,700, and the cats have less than 500. So one thing I didn't know about the cats, obviously they have really rough texture on their tongues. And so I didn't know that there's like little openings at the ends of the papillae. And I guess that's where saliva is and like kind of collects. Is that right?
Maybe.
You know? Okay.
I mean, I know what it looks like, and I know what you're talking about the openings, because their tongues are like total freaky looking things. If you look at them up close, it looks like a weapon.
It does. Yeah. Okay. So from what I found, all, like, they're called papillae, and all of them, even including like lions and tigers and bobcat and the domestic house cat, all have similar lengths. So like your domestic cat has the same length papillae as a lion does. And the reason for this is because when the cat's fur, like say you have a super fluffy cat, when you can lay the fur down, it's like, I think it loses like 98% of its like fluffiness when you lay it down flat. So you only need like millimeters of papillae to get down to the skin. So these little papillae, they hold saliva. And so when the cat is grooming, it's able to lay that hair flat down and get that saliva up against the skin. And that's how it like cleans bacteria and it cleans wounds and it disperses oils. And that's, you know, how they groom. And that's why cats don't smell as lot, you know, as dogs do. They spend about a quarter of their life grooming themselves, which I thought was crazy.
My cat's like 50%. He never stops.
Really?
If he's on my lap, he's licking and licking, and I'm like, stop.
Yeah.
He grooms nonstop. He drives me crazy. But yeah, they do. They're excellent groomers. They take care of themselves in that respect totally differently than dogs do.
Yeah. And it's kind of like a woman's hairbrush, you know, like the bristles, they just stick straight up and you have to like, you know, grab the hair out and pull it out. But since these ones are kind of curved at the end, it's really easy to just kind of roll the hairball up. So it kind of it rolls the hair off of the tongue and then they're able to like, you know, eject the hairball that way. So if anybody is like curious about the cat tongue, go look at it because I was like fascinated reading about it.
It's impressive looking up close. Yeah, it's kind of scary looking.
I think there was only one breed cat that is not like self-groomable, and that was the Persian, and that was done because of the humans bred that out of that specific cat. So I thought that was, yeah. When people dabble in stuff, they tend to ruin it. But okay, so the dogs, they are able to regulate heat, or their body temperature through their tongues. So when they're panting, the air is flowing over the tongue and it's, you know, evaporating fluids and cooling them off. Excuse me. Do cats do the same thing? Do you know?
If you see a cat panting, they can do that. They can use that panting as a regulatory for heat. But if you see a cat doing that, it means that cat's probably extremely overheated. It's not a method that they usually will use to cool themselves down. Cats typically will just become very, very still. To some degree, they sweat through their paw pads, but dogs do that too. Mm-hmm. Cats they tend to handle higher heat, or they like heat because they're a desert animal. So they can regulate by panting. And if you see a cat pant, though, it's kind of that cat's been way overheated and is probably also dehydrated at the same time. So it's not the same way a dog where, you know, your dog is running around and comes in and is panting. If your cat's running around and then starts panting, I would look into medical problems probably, because a cat shouldn't be doing that. It would be really, really like to the brink of like heat stroke if a cat starts panting a lot.
Okay. Yeah, that's what I figured. I don't think I've ever seen a cat do that. And
I've seen it, but it's not a good situation.
Yeah, not a good sign. Okay. I think that was it on the tongue. Oh, okay, so cats are supposed to get most of their fluid through their food because you said it's really difficult for them to get water in their mouths. So when dogs drink, again, you guys should like look for a video of a dog drinking in slow motion. Their tongue kind of like goes backwards and it scoops up the water from underneath and then brings it into the mouth. And so the bigger the dog that you have, that bigger the scoop is and the more mess you're going to have. Do they do that too? Or are they trying to, or do they?
It's a variation, but it's not so efficient of a scoop with a cat because their tongue doesn't move the same way. It's more of a like flicking back motion where it's like just little bits of liquid flick back repetitively into the back of the throat. So think of it kind of like if you have a bowl of water and you're just splashing water at yourself, that's kind of how a cat drinks,
method.
you know? You don't get a lot in your mouth if you're just going like this with water,
Right.
which is kind of what they're tongues do. It doesn't scoop so much like a dog's tongue.
Okay. I didn't think so. I thought that they were just trying to, I noticed that cats lick a lot quicker. And I think that's why they're just trying to like flick it up into their mouth.
They have to lick really fast, and they have to expend a lot of energy to get a very little bit of moisture. I mean, they'll sit there and drink an entire, if you give them food that also, like I give my cats bone broth or goat milk or whatever, and they'll sit there and they'll drink it. But it takes a long time for them to get through a small bowl, just saying a repetitive, like licking really fast, you know?
Okay. That's awesome. Let's see. All right. I think that was it on the tongue. You have anything else on there?
Yeah, I don't have anything else really about the mouth.
Okay. I guess while we're in the mouth, let's do teeth. I think this is one of the most like predominant feature of the pet besides the digestive system that lets you know what they should be eating. When you look at any kind of living being's teeth, you can see what they're supposed to be eating. So dogs have 42 teeth and cats have how many?
30.
You know? 30. Okay. And then they both have 6 incisors up top and 6 incisors on the bottom, as well as the canines.
Yeah, they've got the 4 canines,
right?
Both of them.
Okay. And so those incisors are meant for, you know, snatching, grabbing,
ripping, basically.
Tearing, ripping.
For cats, they're also involved in that grooming as well. So it's one of the things that they use to kind of, in case, like if your cat had some sort of topical parasite, they go through with those, it's like a flea comb that they use, that they go through and they pull through the fur with their teeth too. But primarily those teeth in the front are what they're ripping with, they're pulling, which is why, like when I hear people say give bones to clean the teeth, I'm like, no, you gotta give meat to clean the teeth. Because it's that almost like flossing motion as they're ripping the meat. I actually trained Dexter like different styles of like tearing, because I don't want to brush his teeth. I mean, if I had to, I would, but I've never done it. I just taught him like from a puppy, like chew on this side, chew on that side, and like directed and so I've like taught several people how to do that with their dogs, because there's like this old bones will clean their teeth. And that's like part of the story. It's the ripping of the meat. It's all of that connective tissue that gets pulled through as they're taking it in that really gets in there. That's like the equivalent of like flossing.
Floss. Yeah. I'm a big advocate of that too, telling people it's actually the act of tearing the flesh away. Okay. And then and it's like that in dogs too. They'll use their incisors to scratch and itch and pick out whatever's on their skin. And in like herbivores, their incisors are going to be a lot longer and a lot flatter, and that's for tearing at the grass and leaves and stuff. All right, and then they have premolars are next. So this is where there's a big difference between cats and dogs. So dogs have 8 upper and 8 lower premolars. And then the cats have 4 upper premolars and then 2 carnassials. Am I saying that right? Okay.
Yep.
And then they have 4 lower premolars.
The carnassial teeth, they're those 4th upper molars and the first set of lower molars. And that literally translates to tearing of flesh, is what that translates to. So, I mean, that right there tells you what they're supposed to eat. Just that's what their teeth are called. Right.
Yeah. So that in cats, those carnassials are what speaks obligate carnivore. Like they are there for shearing and tearing. And then we move on to the molars, and the dogs have 2 upper molars and 3 lowers, and the cat only has 1 upper and 1 lower. And so, and this is where it shows that the dogs are more used to like grinding their food. It's, you know, crushing it and grinding as compared to tearing and shearing. And
Yeah.
so to me, that's an opportunistic carnivore where they have no flat molars at all.
Right. Even their molars, all between the dog and the cat, they're sharp edges. It's not the same as what what an omnivore's teeth would look like, where they're flatter in the back.
Right. Yeah. So, and this is where a lot of people, I think it's really important for them to know that neither dogs or cats have any flat molars. So neither of them technically, they don't need vegetation, but that's where dogs they can crush it and they can grind it. And I know that dogs, they can't move their jaws side to side. It's only up and down.
Yeah.
And I would assume the cat's the same.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you'll see that movement in a lot of herbivores and omnivores that they're able to.
Because their digestion starts in their mouth. They start grinding up plant matter. It's not part of a canine or a feline's system to be. Digestion doesn't really start in the mouth for them. It does to the extent that they take it in and they break it down just enough to swallow it without choking to death, basically.
Yes. Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that because a lot of people tend to freak out when they see their dog just make a couple crunches and then try to swallow, and it looks like it's a hard swallow, like they're almost choking, and then they'll regurgitate it. A lot of people think that they're throwing it up, but there's a very big difference between vomiting and regurgitation.
Yep.
And so I think pet parents need to learn that is very typical of
it's normal
dogs.
I mean, I think it freaks people out because we don't do that. Like, we don't shovel food down, then if it didn't go quite right, we don't spit it back up and try again. But that's totally normal for a dog to do. Even cats, if they suck, I mean, cats that, like, if my cat gets something he really likes, like quail, he'll sometimes suck a quail leg down. I've had him suck an entire leg with a foot and everything attached to it down in 2 bites, and then hack the whole thing back up and try it again. And then because he likes it so much, he hacks it up a second time and chews it. I mean, it's disgusting process, but it's like, I just don't, I look away because I know he's fine. I know he's going to do it.
Yeah.
Like, he's not going to choke to death. He knows what he's doing. He just loves that food and he's trying to get it down his gullet faster.
Right.
But he's going to try a couple times and then he's going to get it and it's going to stay and it's going to be fine. And I think the same thing with dogs. You know, my dog will eat something like a duck neck or a turkey neck, like a piece of spaghetti. He barely chews it. I think it freaks people out when they're like, oh my gosh, she swallowed the whole thing. And it's like, well, if it stayed down, it's fine.
Good.
Yeah.
Yeah. I remember when I first started raw feeding and I was feeding my dog, you know, from a puppy. And I remember he didn't even crunch down I gave him a chicken foot, I think. It was just like up and down the hatch, just swallowed whole. And I was like, oh my God, I was just freaking out. And I, you know, ran to the raw feeding groups and stuff. And, you know, I had to get people to tell me that that's okay. As long as it went down and it's, you know, not stuck, and he'll digest it and pass it. He'll pass it. So, yeah, I think that that's really important for people to realize that is a normal behavior. Now, the difference between regurgitation and vomiting is vomiting occurs hours later. And you'll see, like, the digestion process has already, you know, started in the stomach, and you're going to have some bile and pieces of stuff. So regurgitation and vomiting are definitely 2 different things. All right. And then, so that kind of leads us into the digestive system, the whole process, and how dogs and cats are 100% able to handle raw foods, and they're meant to eat raw foods. This is where the biggest indicator is, besides their teeth. So, like you said, humans, we start the digestive process in our mouths through amylase. It starts breaking it down and we start chewing it and swallowing it. Whereas dogs and cats, they don't have that enzyme in their mouths. So they'll just crunch it up enough to swallow it, and then the digestion starts in the stomach.
So
Another
like
thing,
dogs, their saliva, for dogs, saliva is not part of the breakdown process. It's essentially a lubricant to help get it down. It does contain, and this is another thing that's kind of fascinating, why dogs can eat all this gross, like people worry about bacteria with raw meat. But then again, you see a dog sometimes walk by and eat like rabbit poop off the ground. So a dog can eat that stuff also because their saliva also contains quite a bit of antimicrobial properties as well that you don't see in a lot of other animals. And same with cats even. They both have quite an array of different antimicrobial properties going on in their saliva. So while it's not directly digesting anything, it's helping to lubricate it to get down. And then it's also already starting that process in the mouth of, you know, they're not getting any bacteria in there that they shouldn't have in there.
right. I'm glad you touched on that. That's a big thing too. And I think dogs tend to have more of that saliva production. And that's why you tend to see them like drooling a whole lot more, especially when food's around, like their body's already creating.
Yeah, it's that food anticipation. Yeah, it's in. And it's why I tell people not to feed their dog at the exact same time every day. If you want to avoid them getting those bile hunger pukes, if you feed them the same time every day, they're incredibly smart. They're going to figure it out real quick. You know, my cat does get fed around the same time each day, and I can tell you he's one of the most annoying things on this planet when it comes time for food. Yeah, I mean, it's like I better stop everything and feed him, because if I don't, I'm not going to be able to get anything else done.
Yeah. It's just a constant meow. Yeah, I think
actually,
all cats.
And there's another thing about their saliva that's kind of interesting. The pH of both a dog and a cat's saliva, it's actually higher. You would think it maybe be more acidic than ours, but it's actually higher than ours. And that's one of the indicators that the food, like meat, is naturally acidic by nature, that they should be eating a more acidic diet, and not these like kibble and stuff that's processed is also lower pH, or higher pH, I mean. So it doesn't really work with the pH of their saliva necessarily when you put some. So they're supposed to be taking in more acidic type food because their saliva is actually higher pH than ours is.
Gotcha. And so a human's pH of their stomach, it sits on about like a 2.5 on the scale. So 1 is acidic and 7 is alkaline, right? So humans sit at 2.5, and then dogs are around what, 1.7, 1.8?
Yeah, it fluctuates. But yeah, and that's the other thing that people need to understand, is that the acidity in the stomach changes as soon as you put food in it, depending on what you're putting in it.
Right. Yeah.
But yes, it's very acidic. Generally, they have a very acidic stomach. So the bacteria isn't a huge concern, again, because it can't survive that kind of condition.
Right. And I would assume cats are almost on the same acidity scale, especially since they're obligate carnivores. So. Okay. And so once they crunch the food up enough and it's going down the esophagus and it hits the stomach, then that's when digestion really starts for cats and dogs. And you know, another indicator besides the acidity of their stomach is the intestines. So once the food is broken down even more into the stomach, it goes into the intestines, and that portion is a whole lot shorter than in humans.
Yep.
So
with a dog, go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, so we look at that GI tract length, and that tells us a lot about what they should eat too, with the length of it in comparison to the body length. So we're looking at, with a dog, that 6-to-1 kind of ratio, but a cat is at a 4-to-1 kind of ratio. So there again, you can tell that the cat is an obligate carnivore, that it shouldn't really be consuming anything, because you need a long digestive tract to break down any kind of plant matter. They don't have, it's not there long enough to even do it. And really in the dog, it's not that much longer. You know, a lot of the plant, I mean, they have a limited ability, and they can both, I think it should be noted that both dogs and cats are capable of producing all the enzymes to break down even things that they necessarily shouldn't be eating, obviously, because we are able to feed them kibble that's carb laden, and they do digest it. It's not that they can't digest it, but it's very taxing on the pancreas to be producing all of those enzymes that they aren't really intended to be producing in the volume that they're producing them when they're taking in that kind of food. It's just the difference when you're eating a fresh food and a processed food is that the fresh food comes with these enzymes already in it. It's helping to break it down from the get-go. We're not putting it all on the pancreas. If you're putting dead food that doesn't come with any enzymes in it, it's a totally different system. It puts all of the reliance on the pancreas to produce everything, which is not a normal metabolic state for anything, to be honest.
So again, I guess for the average pet parent, what happens is, especially when a pet is eating kibble, which is a very alkaline type of food, the bile or the liver has to produce more bile in order to break down the kibble. So then you're taxing the liver, sit there trying to produce all of this bile, and you're taxing the pancreas because the pancreas releases the digestive enzymes, like you said, Erin. And so you're taxing both organs constantly. And that's when, you start seeing pancreatitis. It's just because their organs aren't meant to digest this type of food. It's not that they aren't capable of it. It's just that they aren't supposed to be eating it day in and day out.
Capable. I mean, even a cat is more than capable of digesting carbohydrates. I hear people say it all the time. Well, cats can't digest. Well, yeah, they can. They absolutely can. It's just it's the difference between can and should, and they shouldn't be. We're taxing organs that unnecessarily by doing that and feeding them that way.
Right. And so, and again, just kind of going more off of what you had just said with the bacteria. So the bacteria is a huge issue for people because they think that their pets are going to get E. coli and all these other kinds of nasty bacteria that can make us sick too. Where it makes us sick is that we have such a long digestive system. It's all that bacteria is sitting in our intestines, and then it's sitting in our colon, and that's when we get sick from eating contaminated food. But like you were saying, they have such short digestive systems that it's not able to sit in the system long enough to actually cause any of those.
It doesn't have time to grow and multiply and then cause symptoms. Where it does in the longer the digestive tract, the longer it has to multiply and grow and spread and then manifest as symptoms. And then the other thing is it drives me kind of nuts because a lot of people automatically assume like raw meat is just covered in bacteria. And it's like, no, like bacteria grows on anything if it's handled improperly and overlong. Like fresh raw meat doesn't just come like covered in bacteria, which I think is another thing that never gets talked about. Like it's somehow automatically, because I mean there's plenty of raw foods. I mean, people, to an extent, people can eat raw meat and not get sick. I watched my grandmother eat beef raw her entire life, but it never gets sick, so there's that too. There's that whole stigma that raw meat generally just comes already contaminated. Well, it certainly can if it's handled improperly and it sits and it's not, bacteria grows as the longer it sits above a certain temperature. But it doesn't just come covered in bacteria, and that's like, I feel like that point kind of gets left out a lot because there's just this I don't know, this idea that somehow because it's raw, it already has all this dangerous bacteria on it, and it shouldn't. like if it does, where you better source it somewhere else.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah, that's the big thing is, sourcing, making sure, like if it smells off, it probably is off. Or if you're getting it on some kind of like black market where it's not
Yeah.
USDA inspected, or, I mean, and it doesn't even have to be USDA inspected, but you need to know the process of,
Yeah.
if you're not buying it from a grocery store, that how is that
Yeah,
being
and
handled?
you would never purposely feed something. If it
Right.
smelled bad, I don't think anybody would be like, oh, I'm going to purposely give it to my dog.
Right.
I don't think anybody would do that. Although, like, because we raise a lot of animals, when an animal dies for some unknown reason, I don't feed it to my animals. It goes in the compost. And my dog, I can't even tell you how many times in his lifetime has dug something out of there that's been in there for weeks, eaten it, and not skipped a beat. So
Yeah.
there again, different animal as far as how much bacteria they are able in a healthy state. Now there's dogs that are not in healthy states. Their guts are out of whack. They've been eating processed food. They aren't able to handle things like that. But a dog or even a cat in a really healthy body state can handle doing things like that. They're scavenger, like the dog is a scavenger, and clearly my dog has no qualms about heading into the compost, digging up a dead thing and eating it. And I don't catch it. I don't let him do that. But if I don't know how many times he's done it in his life, and it doesn't affect his poop even. He's fine. He doesn't skip a beat.
Yeah, exactly. And, we live on acreage too. And so like Six just brought a deer leg. I don't know where from, because we sent all of ours off, to get processed, and it's in our freezer. So I don't know where he dug up this leg, and it's, it's decomposing, and he's fine. And I think that again, just kind of like tying all this in together, is people who live in the city and apartments, like they aren't thinking about these things that us, on farms and living out in the country see our dogs do.
But their dogs,
every
given
day.
The chance, given the opportunity,
do it.
I don't care how floofy and how often you push your dog around in a stroller, let it out and it gets a chance to eat a dead thing off the ground, it's eating it.
That's right. Exactly. So, I think people, hopefully this has helped them realize that just because they look, fluffy and cute on the outside, that the insides are entirely different, and they're still very primitive and still meant to eat this way. And it's not to say that your pet couldn't get sick from bacteria. Again, I always encourage people, and I know you do too, just proper food handling, wash the bowls, just like I prep my dog's food, just like I prep mine for my family. I am constantly washing my hands. I am constantly washing utensils. I'm constantly washing bowls and surfaces and cleaning. And I also give my dog a little bit of time after eating before he's going and like licking on my kids,
Yeah, you're more cautious than I am. I let my dog lick my kids' face when they were little. It never bothered me. It didn't because I think about all the gross things that dogs just naturally do. They go out and they'll eat poop if they get the chance. They go, when a dog meets a new dog, what's the first thing it does? It sticks its nose in the other one's butt. I mean, it's just, it never bothered me. I mean, I was probably a little relaxed with it, more so than most people, but nobody was ever sick. My kids used to crawl. All right, when Dexter was a puppy, I used to feed him in the crate. I closed him because it was easy to clean.
Right.
So I put him in the crate with his food because I was always giving him big stuff to chew on, and he'd be in there and he'd eat his food and it'd be covered in, blood and guts and whatever, because he ate a whole prey as a puppy. And I mean, I'd let him out, and there were times where the phone would ring and I wouldn't immediately go clean that up or whatever, and I caught my kid in there, and it's like, no, go wash your hands, but like nobody ever got sick.
Right.
And there were some things that were like questionable probably here that went on, but nobody was ever sick over it. It just, I think there's a much higher level of fear there than there needs to be.
Too.
You can definitely get sick. I mean, I wouldn't recommend doing things that could potentially lead to you getting sick or to your dog getting sick. But I also think there's a lot more fear mongering over like how big of a deal a lot of it is than it really is. Because your dog's already doing gross stuff. But if they eat kibble, there's still, one, there could be plenty of bacteria on that kibble, and you're probably not following the same safety procedure as you would if you were handling a piece of meat. If you handle a piece of raw meat, you're probably going to immediately go wash your hands. If you're handling kibble, I mean, I see videos all the time with these like little babies. Oh, it's cute because he's in the dog bowl, playing with the food or handing the pieces to the puppy or whatever. You see it all the time. And then the baby immediately puts his hand in its mouth.
Right.
And if that was a raw piece of chicken, people be flipping out about that.
Absolutely.
But the fact that it's kibble,
it's somehow safe.
Somebody doesn't bat an eye at it. And it's like, well, the bacteria can be on that too.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there's just some disconnect, and I think it's just about the marketing, you know. I mean, like we were saying in a couple of previous episodes, it's just feeding kibble is so natural and normal to us, but it's completely not to our pets. It's something that's just been introduced over the last 150 years. And like we said on the last episode, you can't change evolution in that short of a time. It takes thousands of, hundreds of thousands of years to do. So I think people just kind of need to have some common sense and the way I always meal prep my food, I never wear gloves. I don't ever wear gloves.
Either. I can't stand gloves.
I can't either.
People freak out all the time if I like touch tripe on here. Yeah. Oh my God, you're not wearing gloves. I'm like, I'll just wash my hands. I get tripe in like literally by the entire stomach in a giant black garbage bag from the farm, fresh. It's still warm when I bring it home. Oh, yeah. And I'm just like in there. It doesn't even, I don't care. I'm over it.
I know. And that's like another thing, like people have to, it's almost like exposure therapy, like people have to take just like, you may not have to dive head into raw feeding and all this stuff, but like little bit by little bit, it's going to become more normal the more you do it. And just like you, like I even posted a video of me processing a deer we got off our property. And I was like, I cut open the stomach contents and we had hot, fresh tripe right there. And people don't realize that you're more likely to cross-contaminate if you wear gloves as compared to bare hands. Because I don't know what it is, like some people they don't realize that they're touching multiple different things with gloves on, or that they're not contaminating things that way. But if you can actually feel it with your own hand, you're way more cognizant of what you're doing.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't know. I think, again, I think the more people kind of get comfortable with it, they'll start to realize that kibble is probably more contaminated than the raw food that you're going and getting your pets.
At least get the idea out of your head that it's somehow sterile and safe.
Right.
It's not.
Not at all.
Not at all. But I think a lot of people don't realize that. Yeah. Or don't understand that, because like I said, you see like commonly like little toddlers with their hands in the bowl, and then what does a toddler do? I mean, we both have kids, but they put their hands in their mouth all the time. They go straight from feeding the dog to then they're sticking their hand in their mouth. But no one bats an eye at that.
Right. Yeah. And they should. They absolutely should. How many bags of kibble have we seen recalled because of salmonella?
Yeah,
a ton.
Absolutely.
They're always being recalled. But I think we're almost at the hour mark. I think we've covered pretty much nose to tail. I'm going to scroll back through. I know some of you guys have commented. If I can, if it'll let me see if there's any questions that people had. After we post the video, I'm not able to like come see what people have commented. So maybe after I post the video to like my main feed or your main page, if people have any questions, go to that video that we post on our IG or on YouTube once it's posted, and then leave your comments there so that we can start.
I was going to say that too, to leave them, maybe leave them on the YouTube if you can, because there we can easily go back and answer.
Yeah, that's good. Let's do that. So if you guys have any questions or comments, just head on over to the YouTube channel and drop your comments or questions there. Let's see. What food would you recommend starting with? What type of food? Well, we'll get into that. Because our whole point, like with Aaron and I, is to cover like everything dog and cat related, nutrition related, and all that. So if you guys, any of like the nutritions or what to eat and all that, we will get to those questions. But for now, we're just going to try to keep it on topic, because if not, we'll be here for weeks on end talking about dogs and cats.
To talk about all that stuff.
Oh my gosh, me too. I know. Okay, let's see. I think people were just kind of commenting. What type of meat do you recommend for dental health? I will kind of just pop on that just a little bit, just because we did talk about their teeth. And so for like teeth cleaning, I like to do knuckle bones, just because they're big and they're round and there's lots of meat on it. For cats, I have only fed mine quail. I don't know, do cats really need as much raw fed cats? Do they need as much dental cleaning? Like,
well, if they're raw fed, they're not being exposed to all of that stuff that's going to contribute to the tooth decay in the first place. But just like a raw fed dog, they can genetically be more predisposed to developing, more plaque in their mouth. So chewing is just as beneficial for them as it is for a dog. And my cat, I mean, I give him large stuff. Like when we had the deer, like when I was feeding Dexter that deer carcass, because I let him chew on those because it's great for him. I shut him upstairs and let the cat at it for a couple hours. He just sat there and gnawed. Yeah, he gnaws on it. I mean, he's not as it's not as entertaining as it is with a dog because he's very into it. But my cat will pick and and the same thing. He gets the meat going through the teeth and it helps clean, and he'll crunch on the bone of it a little bit. He doesn't really eat through big bone, but you got to be careful because obviously some bones that are fine for dogs to eat are a little much for a cat, and they could do damage to their teeth. But I think cats are also pretty intuitive, and I don't think they're nearly, at least in my experience, cats aren't nearly as likely to try to crunch through something if they feel it's going to do damage. They seem to be a little bit more
cautious,
in tune with that they know that they shouldn't be trying to crunch through that. I mean, I'm sure there's cats that would.
Right.
Mine's not like that, so I'm fine with giving him big stuff that the bone itself he shouldn't probably eat, but he'll work on it and he'll chew on it, and it's good for them, the same as it is for your dog.
Yeah. Okay. Somebody had asked, what if your dog doesn't have drool, like their mouth is dry instead? I'm assuming I think that was when we were talking about like eating, feeding at a regular time and their saliva starts going and they start drooling. I mean, every dog, every pet is individual. And so what may be normal for one dog is not normal for the next dog. So a dry mouth when they're looking at food doesn't necessarily mean anything bad. I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I wouldn't say there's reasons that dogs get dry mouth, just like there is with people. I mean, there's clinical dry, but I don't think that's what they're referring to. I think they're just referring to why their dog doesn't drool a lot. I don't know. I mean, they drool. My dog anyway drools more the more excited he is. If I'm eating something that he can't eat, he drools more than he does about his own food.
Yeah, Six doesn't tend to drool a whole lot. Like
Dexter's a drooler. He will soak my leg. When my husband got him in a terrible habit of letting him rest his face on his lap when we're eating dinner at the dinner table. Dexter is sitting there with his face on my husband's lap the entire time. And then he complains because as soon as he stands up from eating, his entire pant leg is soaked because Dexter just sits there and drools all over him.
That's funny. Yeah, he needs to put like a towel on his lap. Let's see. I don't think anybody, let's see. Alpha toxins. Chicken necks. Yeah, nobody really had any questions, which cool. Good. I think we covered a lot of ground today. So next week, do you want to dive into this complete and balanced thing, which is like the whole reason why we wanted to do this podcast? Are you ready to dive in?
We might as well at least start. I I aspects to it, so we'll be able to talk about it multiple times. There's just a lot to it, and I think people have a lot of questions. I want to talk about it. Okay. I'm excited to talk about that.
I am too. I've been itching to like get these I haven't even out of the way.
From that post that you made the end of last week, and then I made a little response to it. I haven't even gotten through the volume of messages that came from people, positive responses to that, for the most part. Of course, there's going to be some pushback.
Of course.
But hear me out, on any of it. Let's just open up a dialogue about it, and let's just talk about it. And, I don't think you or me is going to try to convince somebody of anything if
Yeah.
But let's just have a, open conversation about all of this stuff, because there's a lot of stuff I think that just is getting repeated, and it almost becomes like that it's a fact due to the fact it's been repeated so many times.
Right. Yeah, I agree. I think, we had a long list of topics to choose from, and we were going to try to do like episode of different topics, but I think if we just dive into it, that'll all, we wanted this to be like super organic and laid back, and I think it's just going to go in that direction. You know what I mean? And as soon as we hear from our viewers and our customers and all that, we want to hear from actual pet parents, that have been feeding not just one specific way, but like all different kinds of ways. Because what's been thrown out is there's no scientific data to back this up, and all the other real life evidence is just anecdotal, and it doesn't mean anything. But I think it does. And I think that you think it does.
I'm the biggest nutritional science nerd. I love the science of it. Obviously, I wouldn't have got into what I do if I didn't love that side of it. But at the same time, and you can make sense of a lot of the science, and I feel like people aren't even connecting a lot of what they're talking about, like a lot of these anecdotal, as you say, experiences. It does make sense, and there is science behind it. Might not directly, there might not be a study I can link you to that says this is this, but it does make sense, and there is a science, if you will, behind all of those natural processes.
Yeah, totally. Okay, well, I think this is a good topic, and I'm super excited for next week. I think it hopefully it doesn't get too spicy, but just for our viewers, like anything that Erin and I say, it's just our opinions. It's just our advice. It's not to take any kind of precedence over your veterinary, advice. this is just two girls having a conversation from our experiences and our own knowledge. And so I just wanted to put that out there, that whatever we say is not medical advice. And so we will be back next week, episode 4, March 6th at 12 p.m. CST, 1 p.m. EST, and we will dive headfirst into complete and balanced over balance over time. If you guys have any questions or comments, please head over to our YouTube. It's The Raw Truth. And we will try to respond to your questions and comments there. And if you guys could like and subscribe our channel, we greatly appreciate it. It gets, the algorithm going, and we can get this out to more pet parents and help pets more. All right. Well, you have a good day, Erin, and
you too.
We'll talk to you soon. All right. Take care, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.